So let's start. So welcome everybody. We start today our fourth lecture of the Leçon du Mardi, which will be in English. And so we are very happy to introduce here Francesca Torzo, which is an architect established in Genoa with her own practice. Francesca is also teaching, so you have been teaching many years in Mendrisio, and now you are teaching in Bergen, right? In Norway. And so Francesca is we're very happy to have Francesca here because she's an architect of a rare talent. She has big coherence and sensibility, and she works with a very high degree of sophistication with the tectonic and care for materials and geometries. So, I mean, what you will see, I mean, you will show, you said, Francesca, you will show one project today, the Z33. You will see it from different angles, and so you will see how a project, in this case, one project, is embedded with a very specific poetic. And by the way, the Z33 was also the project that you presented in.
That's why I chose that one.
Yeah,
it's a liaison d'amitié with you. And in fact, I was already nervous for the talk, and now I'm even more embarrassed by the words of Ambra. So,
no, they're true. I mean,
and shy and well. Je remercie beaucoup Ambra and also Giovanni because I'm going to speak in English because my French is very, very poor. And if you do not understand something, please knock on the door of the screen and say completely unclear. So then we can try to reformulate it in some kind of other language.
But I think it should go for French, for English, no? I mean.
But we keep it open and free.
Okay, let's keep it open, yeah.
Okay, and I was very emotioned by the invitation of Ambra and Giovanni already when they contacted me for contributing to their research project, What is Ornament? Because it's complex and apparently crystal clear, and in reality a field of paradoxes, which is the most truthful expression of life and culture from my point of view. So the question is always, how can you contribute to such a substantial question of research? Therefore, I declare in advance my inadequacy in terms of expertise. And for that reason, I chose to make a conversation, which is a wandering around through my interests or hypotheses and questions around the subject, which is ornament. I am now going to share the screen. I ask kindly, Claude, and you all, it's visible. Yes.
Yes.
So from the invitation, I chose this image because it's a wall, it's a textile, there is a column. And the title was Traditions, because I think it is for me the core of interest in ornament. And I am not naming tradition as the safekeeper, like the antiquity or the antiques, guaranteeing a safe cultural being and presence. Either the authoritarian constraint, other times fought. Traditions, plural, as the other side of one coin of modernities, also plural. we may encounter a dress from the 15th century in Africa, not far from the drawings of Hans van der Laan for a bride dress. And we may recognize assonances between some Persian columns and some sharp photographs by Karl Blossefeld. We may also recognize a sympathy, empathy, a belonging between the column of Karl Schinkel at the Altes Museum and the other column by Miss van der Rohe in the Neue Nationalgalerie. I am interested in these dialogues that travel distant at far lengths of time, variety of peoples and places. But how does our mind work, which is the substantial source of culture? There is a process of associations. We collect information through our senses and recombine them through associations. And that may be a merely individual process. But on the other side, all individuals belong to communities, and this is long as humanity exists. So we are going far back in millennia. And we may say that on one side, there is a tool which is language, which we may formulate as the variable of a common language and of a common logical system, which may be even figurative and ornamental, that allows to communicate and share an understanding of things. But on the other side, there is also myth. And myth we may formulate as fabulating ability. So the ability to sense images as real through times, variety of people and places. In substance is how is it possible that a Shakespeare sonnet can sound meaningful to us? How is it possible that we can encounter dialogues among buildings, artifacts, and expressions which are clearly belonging to societies and communities which are different and non-repeatable, each one unique? The hypothesis that I encountered in Claude Lévi-Strauss, which was a wondrous anthropologist, mostly active as a teacher in Paris in the 60s, 70s, was this coexistence of logic, rationality on one side, and another kind of logic that he named myth. And in Les Pensées Sauvages, he said that art lies halfway between scientific knowledge and mythical or magical thought. And I was impressed how rereading De Edificatoria by Alberti, he was from Genova, born St. Valentine's Day, 1404. Well, he was opening and he was first saying that, questioning the purpose of architecture, like disposing a pleasant and good life. It's not a bad thought, but then how? It is a good life that lives with stories, with a sort of continuity of stories from past times that become alive again because we own them. How to do that? He speaks of decor. He assumes that men and architects are citizens in first place. And so if we question ornament, there may be a first a reading of it as a decor. In Italian is decoro, in Latin decorum. So the representation of a community. But is that abstract? Is that only about figures, geometries, figures and geometries and languages? It may be more complex because there is not a round, closed story, but it's all a translation from time to time where there is not one individual being or one community placing a full stop or the final manifesto or description or law for the expression of human culture. Alberti says the greatest ornament of a city is a multitude of its citizens. So we rely on openness of a discourse that may layer and therefore welcomes paradoxes, coexistence of traditions and modernities, as also Johann Huizinga was naming in the Wage of the Middle Age. It starts from settling. There is a topography, Vitru was saying, first choose a place healthy in air. Then buildings start growing and we start having these cities that now we name historical, but it's just an amalgam of acts of building. And we define in present time other territories within existing territories. May that be the first act of ornament, the decorum of a city. And of course we present, but for me, the most interesting thing is not forging a new image of the world, but interpreting, translating permanencies which exist. We are in Hasselt, which is a medieval city. You can see it from the meandering form of the streets, which have been molded by water, and they speak of mud. We have here, if you see my hand, a significant space, almost an island, a city within the city, and it is the Beguinage of Hasselt, where we are asked to make a project of extension of an existing building, a museum, a renovation and extension of an existing museum. But as you see, there was already existing a place. And so a choice of decorum was to support a continuity, a posture of the existing building. It is silent toward the street, opening only courtyards or passage which welcome the public life and walks, non-different from the existing Beguinage houses which are from the 18th century. Is it the same? No, but it is familiar. Our choice was of continuity. On the other side, towards the interior garden, it opens all the Beguinage houses, open in a dense filigree of windows, which is then reverberated in the threshold and enfilade of the gates of the church ruin and the gates of the orchards of the Beguinage houses. And so was doing the existing museum from 1958, and we retuned the same attitude through a rhythm sequencing of windows which were not tuning their pace, proportion, and size as a transcription of the measure existing in the context, but Venus strabism retuning. And still, all these filigrees, again, share a kind of opacity when they're seen from a perspective, grazing view. In this sense, ornament reflecting as citizen, maybe a reflection on the city, because today very rare to find non-cities. All our world is mostly highly anthropic, at least on European continent. I questioned what is a wall. A wall is a wall, meaning a wall is solid. It has weight. It brings down to earth loads. And it is fascinating how reading De Architectura by Vitruvio or De Edificatoria by Alberti, it always opens, but even the fabulation of Semper on the style, it opens like a cookbook of property, of means to do something. So architects, we are builder. We are not philosopher, but we also should be philosopher and mathematicians and musicians. We should be everything. But the first statement is we should be making buildings. And so this wall may be of bricks, maybe of stones, but it is a wall, meaning that when it is built as a wall, it may exist even philosophically. And I'm quoting Mies. I couldn't say something so beautiful. We know from Roman time opus reticulatum, which is not well, it's a wall. Normally, they're like chips of tufa or of brick, which are flooded into mixture of clay and fragments. So the walls result massive, very deep, but then the expression is somehow lightful, but they have weight. Why did we want to make a building made of bricks with real walls? Because that was the context, but not for a kind of vernacular or romantic attitude of contextualism. I am discomfortable with the sense of genius loci because I find it too romantic. I believe in something more unpredictable and paradoxical. We wanted to accompany the unity of the context within variety. Many types of bricks, many types of joints, many ages of bricks and joints. So we started from tracing the wall, studying how to make today a load-bearing brick wall, because it's not a tile. By law, it has title to be only a tile because it's not deep 60 millimeter, which is the minimum to get the pedigree and be crowned, I'm a brick. But in your hand of a worker, it's 1 kilo weighing, so it is a brick, which is placed one brick on top of the brick in front and together with a bed of bastard mortar with perforated brick. Then we have insulation, and then there is a concrete. So we have a wall in front of a wall with folds where we have dilatation joints. Because as you know, in this time, we are much more demanding in terms of comfort. So we are not really allowed to make thick walls for economy. And we are not really keen in accepting cracks or getting mini ice bombs in the construction. And so we have to split. And that therefore, normally, masonry has a dilatation joint if you're really stretching it, 8 meters. Here it's 1 every 25 meter in the fold. Many types of bricks, but it starts from the basic, a cookbook. Like I was really enjoying reading Alberti, talking about stones that breathe. So when you extract them from the quarry, they have to rest for 2 years so that a stone can breathe out the water, which is exceptional. no? And he says, recalling legends and an oral tradition. So with bricks, how it goes? It goes with clay, earth. You mix, like really making a mold for a cake or pasta. So here there is 3 types of clay, no sand, no straw, but we had to tune the color. So how much do you proportion the clay so that we could achieve a color being non-arrogant, non-loud in the context. All the tests, different mixture, different baking temperatures, and then the form, because it relates to production. Again, Alberti speaks how to make bricks and speaks about different sizes of bricks, thicknesses, formats. Today, to movimentate a diamond form is a kind of a nightmare, because today we are full of mechanical arms that can grip a rectangle form, but will drop a diamond form. So it is half handmade and half industrial made. A rumble, very big, far too big in the beginning. Right size, wrong texture, and then the combination. We had been unpredictably invited to contribute to the 16th Venice Biennale, and astonished by the invitation, we thought, well, it's a fantastic chance to test our bricks, and if we learn how to install them, because in parallel, we were having the facade building site. So we made some brick sculptures, which were meant in the narrative of the Venice Biennale as fragments to hint an idea of how the building could be, together with other fragments. Here you see quickly the plans, and I apologize for the bad quality of this plan of the Biennale. We entered, we placed these sculptures in the space, but it was for us a kind of mock-up to test the construction. Because again, if you want to make a solid brick wall, you have to have the knowledge to do it. And then we were on the building site. So all these bricks that you see are load bearing. It means that the loads are decomposed on X and Y, but they are diagonal. So there are some parts which would be kind of load free, and that's why they are minutely anchored through meshes and different kinds of mortars, so that we have a monolithic multi-layer facade, all, let's say, breathing on the Y and on the X. But it is solid. It wages a lot. In fact, the workers were really tired. 5 men installing all of them. And then the interest in making propositions where we could always affirm the solidity and at the same time deny it. So that in between the windows, we have a pillar that becomes a line. And why? Why were we so interested in this attitude? Because it is a house for contemporary art. And we were, when we started the building site in 2000, well, competition 2012, building site 2017. So a time different from the 18th century or 19th century. And we believe that a brick wall needs to be, on one side, a brick wall, solid wall, sound as a wall, as always, since all times, but reflect the present cultural expression, which holds at the same time technical capacities which were not there in other times. And of course, it is reverberated into the interior. not as a mirror, as a kind of diligent application of a strange dogma of honesty of modern movement where you always have to see structure and no, through a fabulation attitude. But again, also all the ceilings are cast in situ. You can knock them. A textile. Walls, all our cities are made of walls, and they are like the screen, the background, the scenography for our daily life as individuals and also as community. And these scenographies have often in all time represented a chance for festivity, the festivity of a community agreement, the festivity of power affirmation, the festivity of hope, or the festivity of othernesses through travelers. We remember, no, Alberti, decorum is the multitude of, the first ornament of a city is the multitude of citizens. And in this orchestration of the representativeness, ornament of a wall, it is not excluded that it is tectonic, meaning load-bearing. It's not necessarily only cladding. Is it relevant talking about the representativeness of textiles, like Marco Polo was describing to Kublai Khan tent? Outside there were all the zibellini, I don't know how to say that in English, but the the hair of the precious animals, and inside it was all decorated in purple and gold. It was also an architecture. It was painted and dressed. It is another story. Representing men in a truthful manner does not mean perhaps giving birth to our memory in theirs. The hypothesis is that ornament as architectura depicta offers the chance to give birth to memory of others in ours. At the time of the competition, I visited Ercolano, and it's fascinating how the wind coming from the sea has eroded all the tufa, while the joint of mortar resisted because it was bastard mortar, which is very, 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 very strong. It was much stronger than the tufa. And the fascinating result of this erosion by salty wind was that it resembled really a textile. And that was the wish. So question underlined in the beneath the act of making a solid wall today is how can we make a solid wall today that has a memory of antique, not archaic, antique, but at the same time be without thickness. And we started from the wall, normally laying bricks, the rumble, and then composing all the threshold. And that is why this was chosen as the contribution to the wonderful project and exhibition of Ambra and Giovanni in Lisboa, to draw one-to-one the threshold with pencil, because in reality, sometimes you really perceive it like this. Sorry, this was a movie. How do I do this? I have to interrupt. This was awkward. Sorry, I open it again because it's nice to see it. I just tried it. My apologies. This was really not okay.
Don't worry.
I'm sorry. Ecco. Oh. And this was important for me because it's so delicate. Paper and graphite. But it's a wall. It was printed on silk. It was floating as the textile I presented at the time of the presentation of the competition. I asked to make a real exhibition. I was the only one. They thought I was pretty awkward. And I wished the jury to experience the cultural essence of the proposal, so that this wall, made of bricks, was indeed a textile. As well as it was made of buildings within an amalgam of buildings and rooms within a building. Here is the wall. It is painted. Several types of mortar. Getting painted then by weather. But ornament, I find it's even more because it is through ornament, which is language, it is myth, it is tectonic, and it is textile. It is the tool through which we meet and awake othernesses. And with this, I mean this being in between times and cultural experiments, where we understand our cultural position through confronting with others, may there be just beside few days or few centuries or few millennia. Of course, it comes from now a sequencing of spaces. And there's the hypothesis, which again owes Alberti, that there is a sort of harmony or a meaning which may be found in the infinite recombination of simple parts. We do know rooms. This is a plan of the extension building, drawing on the light and the shadow. We made many rooms which may be a sort of urban labyrinth. We know this from historical centers of most of European cities. You go from street to tiny square to under passage, threshold, room, enter a house, another room, and so on. But it also speaks of other places like palazzos and villas, where then all the boundaries between the within and the without, the exterior and the interior, are highly ambiguous because of the interrelation of one space with the other. And may we talk of ornament in the detail of slendering the thickness of the wall, so it may be abstract, so that the air of one room may kiss the air of another room? Or may we talk about ornament in the continuity of the decoration of the ceilings, which created this kind of sound ground of coolness where other things reveal? May we read ornament in the re-encounter with columns in the existing building of 1958, or in half columns in the extension building, or around 3 columns? Is a triptych a passage? Do we meet passage in villas? And how do we define a passage or an enfilade? Is it only a linear enfilade, or is it the experience that our mind recomposes of an enfilade? Does axial dialogue exist only in physical lining up, or does it exist per fragments that we compose in a unity in our mind? Is ornament only about language, figure, or is it also about the dialogue and interrelation among spaces, so that you reawake the memory of meaning of something which already existed? Rooms. Rooms in the context. Rooms in the building. A size which comes back. We never see that. We only see it as architects, because we see what nobody ever sees, the abstract plan. It's not about a rule, it's about an assonance of sizes which relate to people. It is also about thresholds and enfilade, where we wish to bring spaces close to each other in a turnaround, in a discovery, where you remember, of course, the existing building, but you very much remember Palladio. These are all wonderful photographs of La Malcontenta by Matthias Schaller. So maybe it is very, how do you say, erratic what I say, because I am, well, but it's my right to have my interests, which are not pretentious to be any kind of rule. But I'm interested in the challenge of languages, forms, figures, and geometries. I'm interested in that question of why does the meaning of certain works survive and others not? We are back in the city. There was in 1955 the publication of a number of Casabella Continuità, number 206. It was director Ernesto Nata-Rogers, and he published the acts of a meeting of the Association of Architects, which was at the time led by Franco Albini, where there were beautiful interventions of students like you, Zanuso, Albini, and they were proposing a reasoned enthusiasm and making a call for technical maturity coupled with a cultural maturity in search for a continuous present. Thomas Eliot in 1919 wrote a wonderful essay, Tradition and Individual Talent. He was talking about the essence of poetry, but let's read. But the difference between the present and the past is that the conscious present is an awareness of the past, in a way and to an extent which the past awareness of itself cannot show. Thank you. It was this. And I apologize very deeply for the stumble of the video that I just tried with Claude. I had no idea how to reopen it again.
Wow. Don't be sorry, it was super cool.
It's okay?
Yes, yes, of course. Don't worry. Thank you.
I thank you. Giovanni, ben arrivato a Roma.
Grazie.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Sorry for missing the first 10 minutes.
No.
I mean, I feel really sorry, but I could not access the place. So it's...
No worries.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
I was saying that I was very nervous and that I've been studying a lot because it's incredibly challenging, your research team.
Yeah.
And
yeah, a bit. We discovered it while we were preparing the exhibition, that it was extremely challenging at the end, and we thought many times we could not, we would have not achieved the exhibition at the end. So it's yeah. At the end, it arrived. It was there. And also, thank you to you. I think that's you as the other participants. I think that your contribution was very much a very good contribution, because in the I would say, but this is actually not a question, but in the room of the, which was dedicated to the wall and to the and to cladding at the end. At the end, we have ordered somehow the pieces from the solid wall to the textile, and it was nice that also thanks to the Richard Vellet exhibition design, you were both at the beginning and at the end, no? Because your textile was at the very end, closing the room, and at the very beginning, the bricks were there, and there was a sort of visual communication among the two. And I think that's, I mean, the presentation of today totally confirmed that it was a very good choice. So we are happy about that.
Bene, so not deluded.
No, not at all.
Good. I hope also the students are not bored. You must be starving too. No, okay. I see Miriam saying, no.
At the beginning of the presentation, Joanne, you missed it, but Francesca was saying that, yeah, she couldn't tackle the presentation from the point of view of the ornament, but I think that, I mean, you made a great lecture on, and really from this very angle, and I found it very resonating, a lot of things that you have been listing and saying and quoting also. So it's really, I have the impression even we learned about ornament today by looking at your presentation. It was very, I mean, this Alberti quote that you were mentioning is about the greatest ornament of the city is the multitude of citizens. No, I think it's a key point of the way of the lecture. I mean, of the lecture, in a way about what the ornament is. In the end, it's about language and about exchange and about communication of a specific time and place, and place within his own traditions, but also time and also technique. So we constantly, your project, your way of working is always about very precise techniques, no, that you develop, no, of today, but at the same time, this big, very embedded with a specific culture. So that's in a way that's quite remarkable to see how these two things are so present and so clear. So this challenge of perhaps discovering techniques, no, which perhaps were not, I don't know how much you were aware of these techniques of walls, and so it was really a research that you did, and at the same time to make it coincide with the story, which is very deep. So it's quite impressive.
That's why I was so touched. There is a wonderful, I found, imagine on eBay, a wonderful edition of Abitare se gesta on Rinascente by Albini and Helg. I think I have it somewhere. They say...
The text of Helg.
Yes.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
at the point she says, no, like...
yeah, it's in the book of on the Rinascente.
Reality, and they said by perfecting the constants and by thoroughly investigating the possibilities of the variables, meaning the variables of a present time as a combination of a way of living, producing, existing, like today we are here. We can do it with our means. But the constants are the permanencies where customs, ethics, and culture of all time are integrated and survive society transformations. And that's what I think is mostly touching me of the profession, because there's not a written rule for that. It's a constant questioning, and it is grounded in, at the end, genuine curiosity on humanity, but not as a cheesy attitude.
No, it's architecture. It's about people. It's about citizens. Yes. And
we can maybe see if there are questions from the public. I mean, which today is in English is more complicated, so it's more needs.
You can also ask
French.
questions in French, and we can translate it.
Je suis capable de comprendre le français, mais je suis pas capable de parler bien. Kathleen Surena, il a le sourire. Non.
Merci.
Miriam,
je sais que tu es interested.
But you know, it's not about like being shy. You may have questions like, I wonder, what is for you? You have those two wonderful teachers that challenge
I will start.
The holy grail of the questions.
Maybe I will start if that maybe.
Claude?
Yes, I have actually many questions. Thank you very much for this lecture. It's really mind-blowing, I would say, because there's a lot of very rich ideas and topics that you've talked. The title is Traditions. I'm sorry for the formulation because there's a lot going on after you've talked. So you're talking about this question of ornament through the continuity of time. And you talked, one of the chapters was the decor, and you showed your one of your projects, mainly this beautiful building made of tile, and this raised me the idea of camouflage, like you're like kind of analyze the surroundings, and it's a bit like the idea of camouflage is not imitating nature, but taking like excerpt of nature, like colors, and trying to blend into nature. And it feels like this idea came up because it feels like the same strategy that you adapted to your building. You took an element that you found or a pattern that you found in the surroundings, and like kind of use that to be the main component of your building, and not only in terms of visual blending, but it's also a tectonic solution. So I was wondering if camouflage was an idea that could apply to the strategy of this specific building?
Not at all for me. Not at all, because camouflage is literally where you blend, and camouflage is a animal technique, also plant technique, and fishes and shells to don't be eaten, survive. And that's why they tune with texture and dresses of companions or contacts, so they escape the hunters, no? And it is translation. For example, if you take Palazzo Rucellai, no, it's not a new building. Palazzo was already there. Lorenzo was already there, the Magnificent. And what he's doing is that he is preserving the posture of the palazzo in terms of space and how it presents in the city. But he is reformulating, translating, literally, reinterpreting the expression of it. So I think that words that have more consistency for me are interpretation and translation. For example, I was naming before with Ambra, Rinascente by Helga and the Beta, just coming out now. In Rome, they have nearby this, Giovanni, you're in Rome. Now.
It's even close by, it's very close by to the Rinascente. It's like 200 meters from there.
I promise, I go after the lecture.
No, but it's really amazing work. And they have nearby these Roman walls that Helga Franca is describing in tones of kind of dusty pink texture. There was a kind of responsibility. How do you stand there? So how do you establish a dialogue? And then you can choose dialogue of contrast, which tone of contrast, dialogue of sharing un accordo, like talking about music, no? You can be dissonant or consonant, but still you have a dialogue. And that is, so what I wished was to be in a way non-loud in the context, because Hasselt is a small city at the end. It's like Provincia Limber, but has 70,000 inhabitants, which I mean, Padova has more inhabitants than Hasselt in Italy. And it was part of a complex, so I recognized the higher relevance of the Béguinage. So it was clear for me that breaking the continuity of the built border was denying an act of building that was confirmed for centuries, of preserving this island of the Béguinage. So I didn't want to open. I don't think that openings are the best connection always between places. I mean, open is not always open, like glass is totally non-transparent as a fact for reflection, or sometimes an opening can be so loud that you are like flashed, no? You have no time to tune and enter something. And the other thing, the materiality, I could have been blue and then be exceptional, no? But why? On the other side, the facade, when I was there last time in September, because this is like the building that never had an opening. I'm going to make a drawing of the building as a ruin, the building that was never lived. But no, it's lived now, so that was good. But I was really impressed. Like, it's still a mystery for me, this building. I was looking at it saying, but how strange. It's so big, this facade, and so abstract. So it's not really gentle, say. It's not accommodating at all. But it has a kindness toward people walking nearby. In that sense, it is incredibly different from anything that is there. So it is independent, but it belongs to these primary settlement decisions, and the choice was to support them.
Thank you very much.
Yes. I hope the reply was not a delusion, but I think that camouflage is risky and also some kind of rising, flagging an alarm for the tuning of color palette, because I think that someone can go and paint and change, and it's okay, but the posture of a building is something that more likely is going to last until people don't choose to put an end to it. And when people decide to put an end to it, unless it is a case of a war, and so it's an expression of power with violence, then it means that it had not sufficient meaning. And that is like a question for me. And I don't know if this building will last and if people in the future will find meaning. That is my hope. But nothing is certain, no?
Sure, no. I have a second question. It's about the Adolf Loos' philosophy of towards ornament. He claims that ornament is, I mean, he hates superficiality in architecture, and your work is very interesting because you used an element that can be seen as ornament back to tectonic truths, and it's actually it has like an actual tectonic function. So I was wondering if you
would say that. I think it's fantastic your question, because House is really he makes he cannot stand stupidity, basically. So he cannot stand the stupid replica without meaning or a cultural purpose. And I mean, all of his architectures are extremely decorated.
Yes.
All, even when they are white. Because he's making all the shifts, he creates all these different horizons. No? He's even, most of the time, putting the sofas, giving shoulders to the window. He's making a stand for, my reading, making a stand for be alive, be an active, aware cultural actor. Don't be stupid, not allowed to be stupid when you have this responsibility. In fact, but with the great irony he has, he make it in this way. I really adore. Then I don't know what I am doing, but for me it's like there is an ensemble of logical consequences descending from some primary choices, and then there is the tenacity in creating a kind of unnoticed atmosphere, effort that atmosphere, in my experience, but also what I observe in others, is that in our life we need to also have distraction, like we need a little of something to get our attention but then we need also to be let in peace and mind our own business. And so that's something interesting to question. How do you displace that, no? So that there are a lot of virtuoso technique in this building, and also some virtuoso management subjects, but it's totally pointless, that thing. It counts what then is there, I think. And my wish is that it's not too much demanding. Often there was like the debate, why is it, so it was the proposition for the House for Art was that they already had the Vleugel 58, the existing museum from 1958, which is very sober, almost austere, with a classical enfilade of rooms, really classical, descendant from 19th century, which is the ideal white cube, really perfect. They always used like that. We had to make an extension, so why do give the same thing? Why not challenging curators to have different tools to develop curatorial projects? So that's why there was this formula, which was proposition taking heritage from a bet between Harald Zeeman and Jan Hoet with the project Chandami in Ghent, where artists are invited to react on space which have an identity. They're not neutral. And so the building in reality is two buildings making one. It's really very important, this thing. And so, for example, some details are always echoing somehow the existing building, but in a completely different way. Sometimes rising the volume of it, sometimes putting it very silent. So important of the ceiling was exactly to distract the attention from the fact that the rooms are all different significantly in terms of they're not squared. And the continuity of the ceiling allows to forget it a little. Hope.
Very interesting. Thank you. I have many other questions, but I will let the students.
It's very silent. But did I delude you? Claire, Laura, Lucas, Oriane, and Jeanne, Kathleen, Eva, Alessandro Manello, a former student.
Where is it?
Okay, very silent.
No, but don't worry, Francesca is somehow it's the usual trend. Somehow I think Zoom is a bit.
But
at the end, it seems to be more confronting than doing a real question in.
But isn't it nice that you can have a coffee together? It's much more comfortable than being there with the big auditorium and we can look at the face. We could have met at the supermarket a few moments ago. No?
I think they're impressed.
It's true. We're a bit impressed. Thank you for the presentation, because it was really, really good and very interesting thoughts, because there is like complexity, delicacy, like, I don't know, in French it would be like subtle thinking of some aspect about what makes the city, what makes the ornament, what makes the construction. And actually I'm curious because in reality we would want, I think, to listen more to what's your vision of things. But I was curious on how you work, because sometimes with what you said in your presentation, we imagine like you are here in the Carrière de Pierre, hearing the stones breathe and watching the mud.
Alberti.
And yes, of course, but also with the bricks, tiles, and watching the mud and stuff, how to to match the proper.
I'm totally not romantic.
No, maybe that's just my vision of this. But what I'm trying to say is that when we listen to you, we don't imagine you like all day behind AutoCAD and stuff. But my question is how you work, because it's fantastic what you do.
Okay, I am saved from AutoCAD by my fantastic team. I do this. I do all the pencil drawings that you saw. I show you. I do this. This is the studio. Then I can show. Can you see? I don't know. Can you see? Not much.
On
not
the paper, no, not much.
Can you see? Sorry, not easy. Can you see a little?
A little bit.
A little bit. I work in the studio. I can show you. So maybe you also meet the team if they're not went for lunch. I'm alone. Everybody is, we have a cat.
You should show the view also.
We do models 1-to-1, 1-to-5 prototypes for stone, 1-to-1 in metal, bricks on the floor. It's normal, what I want to say, it's normal life and you will make your own. Put yourself at comfort and understand how you work good. My way is good for me. Your way will be good for you. There's not one way.
I like very much when you said that you don't like Genius Locis because it's too romantic. And that's true that in the end, you are very precise in the answers you give. And that's true that, I mean, you have a dialogue with the context, but you bring in other things which are not of the context, and you do it. Then there is a level of factfulness that you have. What actually? When do you agree or do you disagree with the context? Perhaps, but I don't know. I'm fascinated by the Ercolano images you have been showing because you bring in cultures of other times and places, and at the same time techniques which are of today. And
that's why I'm so thankful, because with this terrifying invitation you made to me, I've been reading and studying so much, and I really was. It's crazy. It's really crazy. Like the amount of storytelling you find in trattati. Did it occur to you how much architects speak about proportions and the abracadabra of the magic rule for beauty, while all trattati start with myth, legends, oral tradition, and hardcore cookbook. Then comes the proportion and that's it. But it's really like, mostly it's around the second half of the book. So maybe one thing I would advise to all students, go to the source. Read the books because they're fun. Really. I was, as I said to Ambra, I was really like crying for how much I was laughing and then crying for how much I was emotioned. It's beautiful.
About Alberti.
Sure. But also Vitruvio. Well, in the transcription, also there, everything's a kind. We have all these books of transcripted oral tradition. I'm very fascinated by it. It's like also the fables. I'm very fond of Karl Propp and Levi-Strauss. There is this kind of knowledge that stays surprisingly crossing borders between Russia, China, Italy, various parts of Africa. It's crazy how there are stories maybe changing characters and coming back. And it's surprising how you find that also in the trattati. It was a long time I was not reading, and it's the first time I noticed it. Maybe because when I was younger, I was searching too for the truth. Now I find so beautiful that there is no truth. It's a matter maybe of getting old. Don't know. Old lady.
So also when you read a book many times in your life, or you visit a building many times in your life, you always see something else. I mean, I think if a building has meanings, you're able to see through the building also what you are looking for yourself at that moment of your life, and maybe perhaps it's also like this with certain books, when there is enough depth to what is there, then you are able to, these objects or books, they're able to become with the mirror of what you are looking for.
It's very true, Amram. Yeah, I received gigantic terror and immense gift from you. So,
no, thanks to you, it was really a wonderful lecture.
I'm so happy you're not deluded.
Not at all, Francesca. But
extremely impressed and excited. I think all the students are also.
And Lucas, thank you for intervening. That was refreshing.
Yes, Lucas.
There's nothing to be scared in making questions, or also saying, I disagree, or I really have no clue, or maybe I really want now to go and read, or it's...
Also simple questions. They don't have to be long and complex. They can be direct. In English, it's easier.
Laura is very serious.
I maybe like
sense. Oh.
Yes, maybe a question
Sure.
for the discussion. It was a really simple question, but it was about your project and this big facade on the streets reminds me a lot the Palais des Doges in Venice. But in the Palais des Doges there is openings in it, and I was curious why it's a big blind wall with just two big doors, and you don't open it on the streets.
That is because the Béguinage is really a typology, a place of the north, which is a city within the city, and it was a refuge for women at the border of society. They were orphans, they had been dropped by their husband or family, or they were considered witches. Generally, they were very intelligent figures because they were exchanging services to society in exchange of being able to survive. So often they were teachers, and then they were making work with herbs. So programmatically, this kind of city was enclosed, so almost blind, a fortress, blind towards the city and open towards the interior, very open, where you had gardens and orchards and the church. They were not allowed to give sacraments, but there was always a church like the protecting institution for their existence. So all buildings that now, from the original Béguinage, there is only a wing of houses and a gate building and a solitary wall. Then there have been implemented a factory of gin, some houses for the elderly, and then this museum in 1958. And it's peculiar, I mean, it's characteristic how all these buildings that have been added in time are quite enclosed, if not completely enclosed toward the city.
Yes,
And
this kind of
introvert
program and this need of intimacy, you use it to do this big world, and it helps you to give a lot of expression by your ornament in a way. So it was a good thinking.
Imagine if you enter a secret garden, you pass a threshold, no? And there you are in the garden. If you have just open passage towards that garden, it's already there. It's part of the streets. So there are sequences. Hasselt also as characteristic a lot of passage within the city. I made really a survey of all of them. And so you have this recurrent experience through century, but also in new works they made, that you pass through a deep threshold and you are in one place, another deep threshold, and then you are in another place. So my question is more understanding which are the which are the permanencies or the features which suggest the culture of a place which have survived, and understand how to react with that and what to do with that. So choice of keeping close towards the street was because I thought it was important to protect the garden and not to open it up. The choice of creating the courtyards, because there are 3 openings. One is the entrance patio with a tree and a fountain. Another is the delivery area for the artworks. And then there is a small corner opening from where appear the branches from the roof garden. So it was to make it still belong to the city, but in terms which were of opacity and space, and not through vitrines. Because vitrines are mostly very aggressive, because when a glass, no, look, you see, glass takes the light and becomes a wall. Only when you have shadow, becomes transparent again.
Right, thanks. It's more clearer now.
Thank you. Will you allow me to smoke a cigaretta, as I'm a very heavy smoker and have been good until now?
Yeah, but I also think, Claude, you have to tell us when because there is a time limit. I mean, there is also normally the sense of this lunch. Yeah, you see Claude is making signs. I know students are busy with other classes, so we are also supposed to close and maybe leave you free.
I'm having a little question, maybe. I don't know if it's... I just saw on your website that you started some project in an analog way. So you're drawing a lot of plants with pencil, and then you redraw them with the computer. And what does this technique help you, or what does it give to you? Analog way of thinking.
I really hope that students do not sacralize hand drawing, no, neither computer drawing. For me, they're both tools, but with CAD drawing, I produce an unbearable mistake because I'm impatient. So I've been sent in exile by my team from CAD, and I'm allowed only to draw by hand. But I read very good drawings, so I can read millimeters on a CAD, a screen of the computer, from far away, no? So it's training. One good thing, I like a lot to draw topographical plans and wide context sections. I like to start from afar or from others are apparently abstract drawings. I just take them. Like these for me were a way to study, plan, section and view together of a possible school, gigantic one in China. So they look like abstract, but for me they were spaces. And it was looking for the relations among spaces. This is one thing I do. Another is to draw the landscape because it's a way for me to gain the time to understand how people settled. And so what I'm always trying to understand the meanings that survived. And so drawing at various scale helps me to spend some time with what exists.
Okay.
And then I also have another thing I love to do is to draw obsessively with pencil, like the drawing made for Ambra and Giovanni and others, like if I was a 18th century drawer, not engraver, but with pencil.
I remember it took a few days, no?
It took a week. It took 2 weeks. And drawing by hand, you have your hand, which gives some measuring, draw 1-to-1. Drawing by hand gives you time to think while you're drawing. You don't have an automatic solution. So it helps me a lot, and I think it helps in general. During the lockdown with my students of this course in Mendrisio, because I went back also to Mendrisio, it was all, I proposed a course all with hand drawing. And that was to kind of invite them to say, even if there is lockdown, and even if you have no computer or no printer, you have yourself, so you can do anything you want to try to overpass this lockdown atmosphere. So your question is very vast. It's vast because there are several aspects from which to approach it.
Yeah,
was it sufficient, Laura?
Sorry?
Did it meet your question?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, kind of. Thank you.
But maybe I'm a little bit scared because often I hear today people coming and saying, the hand drawing, and I have no sacrality for it. It's just a tool.
Yeah. No, but it's just because I saw that you really kind of reproduced the same plans.
Yeah, but for executional drawing, it's very handy because, I mean, you see it. And also it's wonderful because you can compose in a quick way multiple scale, which for me is very helpful. So you can check the 1-to-5 together with the 50 and the 500. So in one view, you check multiple consequences of maybe a tiny decision.
Okay.
Thank you, Laura.
I see Claude making signs. I mean, I really said to close this session. Great. Even the part after the presentation, I think that it was another lecture, I would say. So, yeah. Ambra, do you agree if we close? And
should invite Francesca again to see all the other projects.
Yeah.
Should invite project by project, one lecture each.
Thank you again, Francesca.
To you, because it was very emotional, and scared, most definitely. And I enjoyed it madly. In fact, I would say like, I wish more time to study more.
This always. We need always.
Bene, so we go to eat, to have lunch.
Thanks a lot, Francesca.
Ciao Francesca, grazie.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Thank you.